My name's Lauren and I'm 32. Tonight our backyard's alive with fairy lights and laughter celebrating 10 years with my husband James. I'm buzzing, clutching a locket with an ultrasound photo, our baby, my big surprise for him. The music's loud. Sarah's joking with guests, but James is missing. He's been distracted lately, always on calls. I brush it off, imagining his smile when I tell him. But something feels off. Where is he? Have you ever planned a perfect moment only for it to slip away? Tell me where you're watching from, and if this resonates, hit like and subscribe for more. The party's hum faded as I stepped inside, the cool air of the house wrapping around me like a shawl. My sneakers squeaked on the hardwood, each step heavier than the last. James wasn't in the kitchen where empty wine bottles lined the counter, or the living room where our old couch sagged under a pile of coats. I told myself he was probably caught up with work like always. His law firm had been swallowing him whole lately, late nights stacking up like unpaid bills. But tonight was our night. 10 years. I needed him here. I adjusted the locket around my neck, the tiny ultrasound photo inside pressing against my chest. The thought of his face when I'd show it, those warm brown eyes lighting up, kept me moving. I passed the staircase photos of us grinning at state fairs and beach trips lining the wall. We'd built something real, hadn't we? Then Clara caught my arm near the hallway. Her curls were loose, her glass of Merlot half empty. "Lauren, you okay?" she asked, her voice low, like she was afraid someone might overhear. Clara and I went way back, trading secrets in middle school, but we'd drifted after she got married. Tonight, though, her eyes held that old intensity. "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just looking for James. Have you seen him?" She hesitated, glancing toward the crowd outside. "Not for a while. He was on his phone earlier, pacing by the garage. Looked off." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You sure everything's good with you two?" My stomach twisted, but I laughed it off. "He's just stressed. Big case at work." I didn't want to dig into it, not with the party in full swing. But Clara's frown didn't budge. "Lauren, I saw him last week at that diner on Elm. He was with some woman from his firm. They weren't just talking shop." She set her glass down on the hall table, the clink sharp. I didn't want to say anything, but you deserve to know. The air felt thinner, like I'd climbed too many stairs. "What do you mean, not just talking?" My voice came out sharper than I meant. Clara sighed, tugging at her sleeve. They were close. Laughing, leaning in. I don't know, it felt wrong. I'd want to know if it was me. Her own marriage had cracked years ago, her husband walking out after she caught him lying. Maybe that's why she saw shadows everywhere. I shook my head. James wouldn't do that. He's been swamped, that's all. But her words stuck like a splinter under my skin. I thought of his late nights, the way he'd started locking his phone. Small things I'd brushed off. Now they loomed. "I'm not trying to stir trouble," Clara said softly. "Just keep your eyes open, okay?" I nodded, my throat tight, and turned toward the back of the house. The office door was at the end of the hall, a slab of oak that always felt too heavy. James had claimed that room when we bought the place, his sanctuary for case files and client calls. I'd rarely gone in, his work felt like another world, one I didn't need to touch. But now I needed answers. As I got closer, a low murmur stopped me. His voice, sharp and clipped, slipped through the crack under the door. "She's too caught up in her little world," he said, the words laced with a sneer I didn't recognize. "It's almost too easy." My hand froze on the knob. My heart thudded loud enough I thought he'd hear it. Who was he talking to about me? The locket felt heavier now, a weight pulling me down. I leaned closer, my breath shallow, waiting for the next words to make sense of the ones I'd just heard. My ear pressed against the office door, the wood cool against my skin. James's voice cut through again, low and biting. "She'll never figure it out. By the time she does, it'll be done." A laugh followed, cold, like he was sharing a joke I wasn't meant to hear. My fingers tightened around the locket, the metal digging into my palm. Who was he talking to? I strained to catch another voice, but it was muffled, maybe a phone call. My mind raced, piecing together fragments. Was this about works a client? Something worse? I thought of Clara's warning, her words about the diner twisting tighter in my chest. James had always been charming, quick with a smile, but this tone was new. It wasn't the man who'd held my hand through late-night talks on our porch, promising we'd face anything together. That man wouldn't mock me. Would he? I eased the door open a crack just enough to see. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of his desk lamp. James sat in his leather chair, phone pressed to his ear, his back to me. Papers were scattered across the desk, a half-empty coffee mug, perched on a stack of folders. "It's under control," he said, his voice dropping. "The account's set. She doesn't check those things." My breath caught. Account? What account? I wanted to barge and demand answers, but my feet wouldn't move. Instead, I stood frozen, the party's distant music a faint hum behind me. My eyes caught a photo on the shelf us at a lake house years ago, his arm around me, both of us laughing. The memory stung now like it belonged to someone else. Had I been blind all this time? The late nights, the locked phone, the way he'd brush off my questions with a tired smile. I'd trusted him, chalked it up to stress. But this was different. I stepped back, my heel catching on the rug, and the door creaked. James spun around, his eyes locking on mine for a split second before I ducked out of sight. My heart hammered as I pressed myself against the wall, praying he hadn't seen me. "Hang on," he said into the phone, his chair scraping as he stood. I held my breath, waiting for the door to swing open for him to find me standing there, shaking with no explanation. But he didn't come. Instead, his voice picked up again, quieter now, like he was being careful. "Just a noise. It's nothing." I exhaled, my hands trembling. Nothing. That's what I was to him right now. Nothing. The thought hit harder than I expected, a dull ache spreading through me. I needed to know more, but not like this, not sneaking around my own house like a stranger. I slipped back down the hall, my mind spinning. The locket felt like a stone against my chest, the joy of my secret now buried under doubt. Clara was still by the hall table, her glass untouched. She caught my eye, her brow furrowing. "What's wrong?" she mouthed, stepping closer. I shook my head, not trusting my voice. "I need air." I managed pushing past her toward the back door. The party's noise hit me like a wave as I stepped outside, faces blurring around me. Sarah was by the fire pit, telling a story, her hands waving. Guests laughed, oblivious to the storm building inside me. I scanned the crowd, half expecting James to appear to prove me wrong with that easy grin of his. But he didn't. I found a quiet corner by the garden, the air thick with the scent of jasmine. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I leaned against the fence, replaying his words. Too naive. Too easy. They burned, each one a cut deeper than the last. I needed to know who Rachel was, what they were planning, and why James thought he could hide it from me. The truth was out there, and I couldn't unhear what I'd heard. Not now. I forced my way back into the party, my face a mask of smiles, but my chest felt like it was caving in. The jasmine scent clung to me, mixing with the smoky tang of the fire pit. Sarah's laugh rang out sharp and carefree as she waved me over. I waved back, my hands stiff, and kept moving, weaving through guests, clutching plastic cups and plates of cake. Their chatter buzzed in my ears, meaningless noise against the echo of James's voice. Too naive. Too easy. I needed to know what he meant, and I needed it now. I found a spot near the dessert table, half hidden by a string of fairy lights, and pulled out my phone. James's laptop was in the office, but I knew his password. We'd shared everything, hadn't we? My fingers hovered over the screen, hesitating. This felt wrong, like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But his words had already crossed one for me. "Lauren, you hiding over here?" My sister Emily's voice snapped me out of it. She stood a few feet away, her dark hair pulled back, a beer bottle dangling from her hand. Her eyes, sharp as ever, scanned my face. "You look like you just saw a ghost." I shoved my phone in my pocket, forcing a laugh. Just needed a breather. Too many people. My voice sounded thin even to me. Emily didn't buy it. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Don't bullshit me. What's going on? Is it James?" She'd always been like this, cutting through my defenses like they were paper. Growing up, she'd been the one to drag me out of my shell, but she also knew when I was hurting. It's nothing I said, but my hands betrayed me, twisting the hem of my sweater. He's just not here. Work stuff, probably. Her eyes narrowed. Work stuff, my ass. You've been off all night. Spill it or I'm marching in there and asking him myself. She took a swig of her beer, her stance wide like she was ready to storm the office right then. I sighed, my resolve crumbling. I heard him in the office. He was on the phone saying things about me, like I'm some kind of idiot who won't notice whatever he's doing. The words spilled out bitter and raw. Saying them aloud made them real and my throat tightened. Emily's face hardened. What kind of things? Like cheating things? Her voice dropped, but her anger was clear. She'd been through this herself. Her ex Greg had played her for years, hiding an affair until she found texts that broke her. She'd rebuilt, but the scars were still there. I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He said I'm too naive, that I won't figure it out. Something about an account. I rubbed my arms, suddenly cold despite the warm night. The locket pressed against my chest, a reminder of the secret I'd been so excited to share. Now it felt like a weight tethering me to a life that might be a lie. Emily set her bottle down hard on the table, the clink drawing a glance from a nearby guest. That's not nothing, Lauren. That's a red flag the size of Texas. You need to find out what he's hiding. Now. She grabbed my elbow, steering me toward the house. Where's his laptop? Let's start there. I pulled back, my heart racing. I can't just... Snoop. What if it's nothing? What if I'm overreacting? But even as I said it, Clara's warning about the diner flashed in my mind. The woman from his firm. The laughter. I wasn't overreacting. I was waking up. You're not overreacting, Emily said, her voice fierce. I've been where you are, making excuses for a man who didn't deserve them. Trust me, you'll regret it if you don't look. She softened, her hand resting on my shoulder. You're stronger than you think. Let's do this together. Her words hit hard, stirring something in me. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Okay. The laptop's in the office. We slipped back inside, the party's noise fading behind us. The hallway felt narrower now, the walls closing in as we approached the office door. It was ajar, the room dark. James was gone. I flicked on the light, my eyes landing on the laptop on his desk, its screen black. My hands shook as I opened it, the familiar login screen glowing. I typed his password, our wedding date, something that used to make me smile. The screen unlocked, and a flood of icons stared back at me. Emails, files. Where did I even start? Emily leaned over my shoulder. Check his email. That's where Greg hid everything. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the edge in it, the echo of her own pain. I opened his inbox, scrolling through work messages, client names I vaguely recognized. Then I saw it, a folder labeled personal. My finger hovered over the trackpad. This was it, the line. Once I clicked, there was no going back. But I had to know. I clicked. A list of emails loaded, all from an address I didn't recognize. The subject lines were cryptic: transfer complete, next steps, call me. My stomach churned as I opened the first one. It was short, just a few lines, but the words hit like a punch. Funds moved to the new account. Rachel says it's secure. Let's meet tomorrow. Rachel. The name burned into me, sharp and unfamiliar. Who was she? I opened another email, my breath shallow. She's clueless, it read. Keep it that way until we're ready. My vision blurred, the words swimming. Clueless. That was me, according to him. The woman who'd planned a life with him, who was carrying his child. I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles white as Emily's hand found my back. Lauren, she whispered, her voice thick. This isn't nothing. This is bad. I couldn't speak. The room spun, the locket heavy around my neck. I needed to know who Rachel was, what they were planning, and why James thought he could hide it from me. But right now, all I felt was rage, hot and sharp, clawing its way up my throat. Emily's hand on my back was the only thing keeping me upright. The laptop screen glowed, each email a shard of glass in my chest. Rachel. Funds. Clueless. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, itching to dig deeper, but my body felt leaden like I was sinking into the floor. The office smelled of stale coffee and James's cologne, a scent that used to comfort me. Now it turned my stomach. I clicked another email, my eyes burning. Meet me at the usual spot, it read. She's too busy with the party to notice. The date was today. Tonight. I leaned back, my breath ragged. He was with her right now. While I was out there smiling for our guests, planning to tell him about our baby, he was somewhere else with someone else, laughing at how easy it was to fool me. The locket pressed against my skin, its weight unbearable. I wanted to rip it off, to scream, but all I could do was stare at the screen, my world crumbling with every word. Emily's voice broke through, low and urgent. Lauren, we need to find him. Wherever he is, you deserve answers. She grabbed her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. I'm texting Sarah to keep the party going. You and me were going to his office downtown. That's where he'd go, right? For whatever this is. Her eyes were fierce, but I saw the worry in them, the same fear I felt. I shook my head, my voice barely a whisper. I don't know, Em. What if it's worse than I think? The thought of facing him, of seeing the truth in his eyes, terrified me. I'd spent 10 years building a life with him, believing in us. What if it was all a lie? The emails stared back, mocking me. Rachel. The account. The usual spot. Each one peeled back another layer of the man I thought I knew. Emily knelt beside me, her hands on my knees. You can't stay here wondering. I've been that person, Lauren, sitting in the dark, letting Greg's lies eat me alive. You're not doing that. We're going. Her voice cracked, and I saw her own pain resurface, the years she'd lost to a man who didn't deserve her. It was enough to pull me out of my haze. Okay, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Let's go. I closed the laptop, the screen going dark, and stood, my legs wobbly. Emily grabbed her keys from her purse, and we slipped out the side door, avoiding the party. The night air hit me sharp and cool, but it did nothing to clear the fog in my head. My hands shook as I climbed into her car, the locket swinging against my chest like a pendulum. The drive to James's downtown office was silent, the city lights blurring past. Emily gripped the wheel, her jaw tight, while I stared out the window, replaying every moment of our marriage. Our first apartment with its leaky faucet and thrift store couch. The way he'd bring me coffee in bed on Sundays, his hair still messy from sleep. The promises we'd made, standing in front of our families, vowing to face the world together. Had any of it been real? Or had I been too naive? Just like he said. My phone buzzed in my lap, a text from Sarah. Where'd you go? Party's still rocking, I ignored it, my thumb brushing the locket instead. The ultrasound inside was supposed to be our future, a new chapter. Now it felt like a tether to a man I didn't recognize. I wanted to believe there was an explanation, something to make this make sense, but the emails were too clear. Rachel. Money. A plan I wasn't part of. Emily pulled into the parking garage under James's firm, the concrete walls swallowing us. The place was nearly empty, just a few cars scattered across the lot. His office is on the 10th floor, right? She asked, cutting the engine. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. The elevator ride was suffocating, the mirrored walls reflecting my pale face, my eyes red and hollow. Emily squeezed my hand, but it didn't help. Nothing could. When the doors opened, the hallway was dark, the firm's glass doors locked. But a faint light spilled from under James's corner office door, and my heart lurched. He was here. I took a step forward, then stopped, my legs like jelly. Emily nudged me. You've got this, she whispered. Whatever's on the other side, you're stronger than it. I wanted to believe her, but every step toward that door felt like walking into a trap. The light flickered, and I heard a low laugh, his laugh, the one that used to make me feel safe. Now it was a blade cutting deeper with every second. I reached for the door, my hand trembling, knowing that whatever I found inside would change everything. The locket burned against my skin, a silent scream of the life I thought I had. The office door felt heavier than it should, the glass cool under my palm as I pushed it open. The hallway stretched before me, James's corner office glowing like a beacon at the end. My sneakers sank into the plush carpet, muffling my steps, but my heart pounded loud enough to drown out everything else. Emily was a step behind her presence, steady, but not enough to quiet the storm in my head. The locket swung against my chest, a reminder of the secret I'd carried all night, now buried under a weight I couldn't name. James's laugh echoed again, sharper this time, cutting through the silence of the empty firm. I froze mid-step, my breath catching. It wasn't just him. Another voice, female, soft but confident, answered too low to make out the words. My stomach twisted, the emails flashing in my mind. Rachel. It had to be her. I forced my legs to move, each step a battle against the urge to turn back, to pretend I hadn't heard, hadn't seen. The office door was cracked, a sliver of light spilling into the hall. I pressed myself against the wall, peering through the gap. James stood by his desk. His tie loosened, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. Across from him, a woman leaned against a filing cabinet, her dark hair pulled into a sleek bun, her smile easy, like she belonged there. She was polished. Her blazer tailored, her posture relaxed in a way that screamed familiarity. Rachel. My throat tightened, the air too thick to breathe. You worry too much, she said, her voice smooth, almost amused. Lauren's not the type to dig. She's happy playing house, planning her little surprises. She laughed, a sound that clawed at me, and James joined her, his head tilting back. The man I'd married, the one who'd promised me forever, was laughing at me with her. I gripped the door frame, my nails digging into the wood. Playing house. The words burned, each one a confirmation of the emails, of Clara's warning, of every doubt I'd pushed down. My eyes darted to the desk where a silver frame lay face down, its glass cracked. Our wedding photo. I'd seen it 100 times, us on a windy cliff. My veil tangled, his arm around me, both of us beaming. Now it was broken, discarded, just like me. James set his glass down, the clink sharp in the quiet. It's almost done, he said, his voice low, conspiratorial. The last transfer clears tomorrow. After that, we're free. New city, new life. She'll get the house, whatever's left. She won't fight it. He shrugged, like it was nothing, like tearing my world apart was just paperwork. Rachel stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. And the kid. You sure she's not onto that yet? Her tone was casual, but the words hit me like a freight train. The kid. My hand flew to the locket, my fingers trembling as I clutched it. They knew about the baby. How I hadn't told anyone but Sarah, and even then only in passing. Had James found out? Had he been playing me this whole time, knowing I was pregnant? My knees buckled and I sank against the wall, my breath coming in shallow gasps. Emily grabbed my arm, her eyes wide, but I shook my head, mouthing, wait. I needed to hear more, even if every word was a knife. Rachel's voice picked up again, colder now. It's perfect, really. She'll be too busy with a newborn to notice the money's gone. By the time she does, we'll be long gone. Gone. The word echoed, hollowing me out. They were planning to leave, to take everything, our savings, our future, and leave me with nothing but a baby and a house I couldn't afford. I pressed my hand to my mouth, stifling a sob. The room spun, the walls closing in, but I couldn't look away. James nodded, his expression calm, like he was discussing a case, not our marriage. She trusts me, he said, almost smug. Always has. The locket burned against my skin, the ultrasound inside a silent scream. I'd wanted to surprise him, to share the joy of our child. Instead, I was standing here invisible, watching him dismantle our life with a stranger. My chest ached, a raw, tearing pain that spread with every breath. I wanted to scream, to shatter their smug certainty, but my body wouldn't move. I was trapped, caught between the life I'd believed in and the truth unfolding before me. A soft shuffle behind me broke my trance. I turned, my heart lurching, to see an older man in a janitor's uniform, his mop paused mid-swipe. His name tag read Henry, his face lined and kind, but his eyes held a quiet concern. You okay, miss? He whispered, barely audible. I shook my head, tears spilling over, and he glanced at the office door, understanding dawning. "You don't have to stay," he said softly. "But if you do, don't let them break you." His words were a lifeline, but I wasn't ready to grab it. Not yet. I turned back to the door, my hands shaking as James's voice rose again, planning a future that didn't include me. Henry's whisper lingered, but I couldn't move, my eyes locked on the sliver of James's office. His voice sharpened, cutting through the haze. "Once the account's drained, we cut ties. Clean break." Rachel's heels clicked as she paced, her silhouette sharp against the window. "And her family. They're close. Won't they push back?" James snorted, a sound so cold it stole my breath. "Her sister's a loudmouth, but she's no threat. Lauren's too soft to fight. She'll crumble. Soft. Crumble." The words landed like blows, each one stripping away the woman I thought I was. I pressed my palm against the wall, the cool plaster grounding me as my legs threatened to give out. Emily's hand tightened on my arm, her breath hitching, but I couldn't look at her. My world was shrinking to this moment, to the man I loved tearing me apart with every syllable. Rachel laughed low and cruel. "You've got her trained, don't you? 10 years and she's still eating out of your hand." She stopped pacing, her voice dropping. "Bet she's out there now playing perfect wife, clueless as ever." James leaned against his desk, swirling his drink. "She's probably planning some sweet gesture. Makes it easier." His tone was casual, like he was discussing the weather, not my heart. My fingers brushed the locket, the metal warm from my skin, but it offered no comfort now. The baby. Our baby was just a footnote to them, a complication to their plan. I wanted to scream to shatter their smug certainty, but my throat was raw, my voice gone. The truth was worse than I'd feared. This wasn't just an affair. It was a betrayal so calculated, it hollowed me out, leaving nothing but rage and grief. Henry shifted behind me, his mop squeaking faintly. His eyes met mine, soft but urgent, and he mouthed, "Go." I shook my head, tears burning my cheeks. I needed to hear it all, to let every word carve itself into me. Rachel's voice rose again, smug. "You sure about the kid?" "A baby complicates things. She might get clingy." James shrugged his back to me. "She'll manage. Single mom struggling, it's her problem. I'm done. Done." The word echoed final, like a door slamming shut. My chest heaved a sob, clawing its way up, but I swallowed it, my nails digging into my palms. Emily tugged at my sleeve. Her face pale, but I couldn't leave. Not yet. I needed to see his face to know this was real. I pushed the door wider, the hinges silent, and stepped into the light. James turned, his eyes locking on mine. For a split second, shock flickered across his face, his glass frozen mid-air. Rachel spun, her smile vanishing, her hand clutching a folder like a shield. The room went still, the air thick with the weight of my presence. I stood there trembling, the locket heavy around my neck, my heart a shattered thing. Lauren James started, his voice too smooth, too practiced. "What are you doing here?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. The pain was too big, a tidal wave swallowing me whole. Rachel's eyes darted to James, then back to me, her lips parting as if to speak, but I didn't care. All I could see was him, the man who'd promised me everything, standing there with her, planning to leave me with nothing. My vision blurred, tears spilling, and I stumbled back, the world tilting. I was breaking, and there was no way to stop it. My legs carried me backward out of James's office before my mind could catch up. His voice, smooth, too smooth, called my name again, but it was drowned by the roar in my ears. Emily's arm looped through mine, pulling me toward the elevator, her grip fierce. The glass doors of the firm swung shut behind us, the hallway's silence swallowing the echo of Rachel's startled gasp. My tears blurred the fluorescent lights, but I didn't wipe them away. I let them fall hot and heavy as we stumbled into the elevator. Emily jabbed the button for the ground floor, her breath shaky. "Lauren, you don't have to say anything right now. But we're not letting this slide. He doesn't get to do this." Her voice was steel, but her eyes were wet, mirroring my own. I leaned against the mirrored wall, my reflection, a stranger pale hollow, the locket glinting like a cruel joke. The baby. Our baby. He'd called it my problem. The thought ignited something deep inside, a spark beneath the wreckage of my heart. The elevator dinged and we spilled into the parking garage, the air damp and cool. I stopped, my hands clenching into fists. "I need to face him," I said, my voice raw but steady. "Not just walk away. He doesn't get to say those things and go on like nothing happened." The words surprised me, their weight grounding me. For the first time all night, I felt a flicker of control, fragile but real. Emily nodded, her jaw tight. "Then let's go back. Right now. You say what you need to say." She opened the car door, but I shook my head. I couldn't do this in that office with Rachel's smirk and James's lies thick in the air. I needed to do it on my terms. "No," I said, wiping my face with my sleeve. "I'm going in alone. But I need you to wait for me." My voice didn't waver, and that steadiness startled me. Emily searched my face, then nodded, squeezing my hand. "I'll be right here. You've got this." I turned back to the elevator, my steps deliberate, each one a choice. The ride up was different this time. My heart still raced, but it wasn't just fear. It was purpose. The hallway stretched before me again, but now it felt like a path I was carving, not a trap. James's office door was still ajar. Their voices quieter now, urgent. I didn't hesitate. I pushed it open, the hinges creaking, and stepped inside. James was at his desk, Rachel beside him, both frozen as I entered. The folder she'd held was now tucked under her arm, her face a mask of forced calm. James stood, his hands raised like he could stop me with a gesture. "Lauren, listen, you're misunderstanding. Don't," I cut him off, my voice low but sharp, slicing through his excuse. "I heard you, both of you, the account, the plan, how I'm too soft to fight." I took a step closer, my eyes locked on his. "You think I'll just crumble? You're wrong." My hands trembled, but I stood tall, the locket a quiet strength against my chest. Rachel shifted, her lips parting, but I didn't give her a chance. "And you," I said, turning to her, my voice steady. "You don't know me. You don't get to laugh at my life like it's a game." Her eyes widened, but she said nothing, her confidence cracking. I turned back to James, my heart pounding but clear. "I know about the money, the transfers. I saw the emails. You're not as clever as you think." James's face paled, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Lauren, it's not what you think. It's just business, a deal that—" He stepped toward me, his voice softening, the old charm slipping into place. It was the tone he'd used 1,000 times, the one that used to melt my doubts. But not tonight. "Stop lying," I said, my voice rising, each word a release. "You've been lying for years. To me, to our family, to everyone who believed in us." My throat burned, but I kept going, the spark inside me flaring brighter. "You don't get to talk your way out of this. Not anymore." He froze, his hands dropping to his sides. For the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes, and it fueled me. I wasn't the naive wife he'd mocked. I was here, standing in his world, tearing down the illusion he'd built. The locket pressed against me, a reminder of what I was fighting for, not just me, but the life growing inside me. I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening, knowing this was only the beginning. The silence in James's office was thick, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioning. Rachel's folder slipped from her grip, hitting the floor with a soft thud, papers fanning out. James's eyes darted to it, then back to me, his mask of control fraying. I stood my ground, my pulse steady. Now the locket, a quiet anchor against my chest. The woman I'd been an hour ago, shattered, voiceless, was gone. In her place was someone new, someone who wouldn't let his lies bury her. "I'm done being your fool," I said, my voice low, each word deliberate. "You thought I'd stay blind, let you walk away with everything. But I see you now, and I'm not staying quiet." I stepped closer, my gaze unflinching. "You don't get to destroy our life and pretend it's nothing. Not to me, not to our child." James flinched at the word child, his jaw tightening. Rachel's face twitched, her polished facade cracking further. But I didn't care about her. This was about him, about the years I'd poured into us, the trust I'd given so freely. I turned to the desk, my eyes catching a stack of documents by his keyboard. A bank logo peeked out, the same one from the emails. My hand moved before I could think, snatching the top sheet. James lunged forward. "Lauren, wait, no," I snapped, holding the paper out of reach. It was a transfer confirmation, 6 figures to an account I'd never seen. My name was nowhere on it. My stomach lurched, but I forced myself to read on the numbers, blurring through my anger. This was our savings, our future funneled away while I planned a nursery. I folded the paper, tucking it into my pocket. "This is mine now," I said, my voice ice. "And I'm not done looking." James's hands clenched, his charm replaced by something raw, desperate. "You're blowing this out of proportion. It's just a temporary move for the firm. You don't understand how these things work." His voice was pleading now, the tone he used when he wanted to smooth things over. But it was hollow, and I saw it for what it was, a performance. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping me. "I understand enough. You've been planning this for years, haven't you, with her?" I didn't look at Rachel, didn't need to. Her presence was a shadow, irrelevant compared to the man I'd built my life with. "You made your choice, James. Now I'm making mine." I turned to leave, my heart pounding but my mind clear. His voice followed, sharper now. "Lauren, you walk out with that, you're starting something you can't finish." It wasn't a plea anymore. It was a threat. I paused, my hand on the door, but I didn't turn back. His words were meant to scare me, to pull me back into the role he'd written for me. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Outside the hallway, air hit me cool and sharp, but I didn't slow down. Emily was waiting in the garage, her car idling, and I slid into the passenger seat, the bank paper crumpled in my fist. "Drive," I said, my voice steady. She didn't ask questions, just pulled out, the city lights streaking past. My phone buzzed, Sarah, probably wondering where I was, but I ignored it. I needed a plan, someone who could help me protect what was left. "I'm calling Karen," I said, pulling up my contacts. Karen was a lawyer, a friend of Sarah's from college, a single mom who'd rebuilt her life after a messy divorce. I'd met her once at a barbecue, her no-nonsense laugh cutting through the small talk. If anyone could help me untangle this, it was her. The call connected, her voice crisp despite the late hour. "Lauren, what's up?" I took a breath, the locket warm against my skin. "I need your help. James is stealing everything, our money, our life. I have proof, but I don't know what to do next." My words were calm, deliberate, a stark contrast to the chaos inside me. Karen didn't hesitate. "Come to my office tomorrow, first thing. Bring everything you've got. We'll stop him." I hung up my hands, still trembling, but my mind clear. Emily glanced over, her eyes soft but proud. "You're doing this, Lauren. You're fighting." I nodded, staring out at the dark streets. The fight was just beginning, and it terrified me, but it also felt right, like stepping into a version of myself I'd forgotten existed. Back home, the party was winding down, fairy lights dimming in the yard. I slipped inside, avoiding the stragglers, and locked myself in the guest room. The bank paper lay on the bed, its numbers a stark truth. I touched the locket, picturing the tiny life inside me, and made a silent promise I'd protect us no matter what. My eyes fell on the door, locked against the man I'd once trusted, and I sat in the quiet, my resolve a steady flame burning brighter than my fear. James's car pulled away, its taillights fading into the afternoon haze. I stood on the porch. The door clicked shut behind me, and the silence was deafening. My hands trembled, but I didn't move, didn't cry. The locket rested against my chest, cool now, like it had absorbed the heat of my anger. Inside, Sarah's voice murmured, probably on the phone, but I couldn't face her yet. The weight of what I'd done, calling a lawyer, confronting him, had settled into my bones, heavy but not crushing. Morning came too fast. I woke to the sound of dishes clinking downstairs, the party's aftermath still scattered across the house. I slipped out before anyone could ask questions, driving to Karen's office with the bank paper tucked in my purse. Her building was a squat brick structure downtown, the kind that blended into the city's hum. Inside, her office smelled of fresh coffee and ink, a a cluttered desk piled with legal pads, and a photo of her kids grinning at a fair. Karen stood as I entered, her handshake firm, her eyes sharp but kind. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a chair. I handed her the paper, my voice steady as I explained the emails, the transfers, James's plan with Rachel. She scanned the document, her brow furrowing. "This is serious, Lauren. If he's moving marital assets without your consent, we can freeze the account. But we need to move fast." She jotted notes, her pen scratching the paper. "I'll file an emergency motion today." "You okay with that?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Do whatever it takes." Her confidence was a lifeline pulling me forward. As she typed, she glanced up. "I've seen this before. My ex tried something similar, hid money, thought I'd roll over. I didn't. You won't either." Her words were matter-of-fact, but they steadied me, a reminder I wasn't alone. By noon, Karen had sent the motion to the court, and I was back home, the house quiet now, the fairy lights unplugged and tangled in a box. Sarah was in the kitchen, scrubbing plates, her hair tied back. She looked up, her smile fading when she saw my face. "You look like hell." "Where were you last night?" Her voice was gentle, but I could tell she'd been worried. I sank into a chair, my hands clasped tight. "I found out James is stealing our money, planning to leave with someone else." The words felt strange, like they belonged to someone else's life. Sarah dropped the sponge, her eyes wide. "What? How?" When I told her everything, my voice flat, the story spilling out like a confession. She listened, her hands gripping the counter, her shock mirroring the chaos I'd felt hours ago. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. My stomach dropped. I knew that rhythm, James's quick, impatient knock. Sarah started toward the door, her face hard, but I stopped her. "I'll handle it." My voice was calm, but my pulse raced. I opened the door, and there he was. His suit rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. "Lauren, we need to talk," he said, his tone soft, almost pleading. I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. "Talk?" I said, crossing my arms. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the small space. "You've got it all wrong. The money, Rachel, it's not what you think. I was protecting us, moving funds for a deal. I didn't want to stress you." His words were smooth practice, but they grated against me, empty after everything I'd heard. "Don't," I said, my voice low. "I saw the emails. I heard you last night. You're not protecting me. You're robbing me." His face shifted, a flicker of panic breaking through. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Lauren, please. Let's work this out. For us. For the baby." The mention of our child was a knife twisting deep. He knew, and he was using it. I held his gaze, my heart pounding, but my resolve ironclad. "There is no us anymore. I've already got a lawyer. The account's being frozen. You're not getting away with this." His eyes widened, his mouth opening, but no words came. For the first time, he looked small, caught the man behind the charm exposed. He reached for my arm, but I stepped back, my voice cold. "Leave. Now." He stood there, frozen, his hands falling to his sides. The air between us was heavy, charged with the weight of what I'd done. I'd called his bluff, and he hadn't expected it. Neither had I, not really. As he turned and walked to his car, his shoulders slumped, I felt a strange stillness settle over me, like the world had paused, waiting for what came next. The guest room was dark, the only light a faint glow from the street lamp slipping through the blinds. I sat on the edge of the bed, the bank paper smoothed out beside me, its numbers stark against the crumpled sheet. My fingers brushed the locket, but I didn't open it. The weight of last night, of facing James, of seeing the truth in his eyes, had settled into my bones, heavy but not crushing. I'd taken the first step, and now the world was shifting, whether I was ready or not. Morning came too fast. I woke to the sound of dishes clinking downstairs, the party's aftermath still scattered across the house. I slipped out before anyone could ask questions, driving to Karen's office with the bank paper tucked in my purse. Her building was a squat brick structure downtown, the kind that blended into the city's hum. Inside, her office smelled of fresh coffee and ink, a cluttered desk piled with legal pads, and a photo of her kids grinning at a fair. Karen stood as I entered, her handshake firm, her eyes sharp but kind. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a chair. I handed her the paper, my voice steady as I explained the emails, the transfers, James's plan with Rachel. She scanned the document, her brow furrowing. "This is serious, Lauren. If he's moving marital assets without your consent, we can freeze the account. But we need to move fast." She jotted notes, her pen scratching the paper. "I'll file an emergency motion today. You okay with that?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Do whatever it takes." Her confidence was a lifeline pulling me forward. As she typed, she glanced up. "I've seen this before. My ex tried something similar, hid money, thought I'd roll over. I didn't. You won't either." Her words were matter of fact, but they steadied me, a reminder I wasn't alone. By noon, Karen had sent the motion to the court, and I was back home, the house quiet now, the fairy lights unplugged and tangled in a box. Sarah was in the kitchen, scrubbing plates, her hair tied back. She looked up, her smile fading when she saw my face. "You look like hell. Where were you last night?" Her voice was gentle, but I could tell she'd been worried. I sank into a chair, my hands clasped tight. "I found out James is stealing our money, planning to leave with someone else." The words felt strange, like they belonged to someone else's life. Sarah dropped the sponge, her eyes wide. "What? How?" When I told her everything, my voice flat, the story spilling out like a confession. She listened, her hands gripping the counter, her shock mirroring the chaos I'd felt hours ago. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. My stomach dropped. I knew that rhythm. James's quick, impatient knock. Sarah started toward the door, her face hard, but I stopped her. "I'll handle it." My voice was calm, but my pulse raced. I opened the door, and there he was, his suit rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. "Lauren, we need to talk," he said, his tone soft, almost pleading. I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. "Talk," I said, crossing my arms. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the small space. "You've got it all wrong. The money, Rachel, it's not what you think. I was protecting us, moving funds for a deal. I didn't want to stress you." His words were smooth, practiced, but they grated against me, empty after everything I'd heard. "Don't," I said, my voice low. "I saw the emails. I heard you last night. You're not protecting me. You're robbing me." His face shifted, a flicker of panic breaking through. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Lauren, please. Let's work this out. For us. For the baby." The mention of our child was a knife twisting deep. He knew, and he was using it. I held his gaze, my heart pounding, but my resolve ironclad. There is no us anymore. I've already got a lawyer. The account's being frozen. You're not getting away with this. His eyes widened, his mouth opening, but no words came. For the first time, he looked small, caught the man behind the charm exposed. He reached for my arm, but I stepped back, my voice cold. "Leave. Now." He stood there, frozen, his hands falling to his sides. The air between us was heavy, charged with the weight of what I'd done. I'd called his bluff, and he hadn't expected it. Neither had I, not really. As he turned and walked to his car, his shoulders slumped. I felt a strange stillness settle over me, like the world had paused, waiting for what came next. The new apartment smelled of fresh paint and cardboard, a small one-bedroom with windows that caught the morning sun. I stood in the living room, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, my hands smudged with dust from sorting old books. The locket hung loose around my neck, its clasp worn from months of restless fingers. I'd moved in last week, leaving the house behind, its echoes of James too heavy to carry. This place was mine, a blank slate, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I set a box down and pulled out a sketchbook, its pages yellowed from years in storage. I'd loved drawing as a kid, charcoal sketches of trees, faces, anything that caught my eye. But James had called it a distraction, a hobby I'd outgrown. I flipped it open, tracing a sketch of a sparrow, its wings half drawn, like it was caught mid-flight. Something stirred in me, a quiet urge, and I grabbed a pencil from a nearby mug. The first strokes were clumsy, the pencil unfamiliar in my hand, but I kept going, sketching the view from my window, a brick courtyard, a lone bench ivy creeping up the wall. Each line felt like a small rebellion, a reclaiming of something I'd let slip away. The world outside was still the city's hum, distant, and for a moment I was just me, not the woman fighting a divorce or untangling lies. Just Lauren drawing. My phone buzzed on the counter, Clara's name lighting up the screen. We'd reconnected since the party, her own divorce final now, her voice a steady presence through my chaos. I answered, setting the pencil down. "Hey," she said, her tone warm. "Settling in? Okay," I smiled, leaning against the counter. "Getting there. Found an old sketchbook. Feels good." She laughed, soft and knowing. "That's you, isn't it? Always finding something beautiful in the mess." We talked for a while, her stories of new clients and bad first dates, weaving with mine of unpacking and court dates. She paused, her voice quieter. "I'm proud of you, Lauren. You're building something real." Her words landed gently like a hand on my shoulder, and I closed my eyes, letting them sink in. After we hung up, I wandered to the courtyard, the sketchbook tucked under my arm. The bench was damp from morning dew, but I sat anyway, the chill grounding me. A woman passed by, pushing a stroller, her toddler babbling about pigeons. I touched the locket, picturing my own child due in a few months. The fear of doing this alone was still there, but it was quieter now, softened by the life I was carving out. I opened the sketchbook again, sketching the toddler's tiny sneakers, the curve of the stroller's handle. The lines flowed easier this time, my hand steady. I thought of Clara, of her courage in starting over, and of myself stepping into this new space. The pain of James's betrayal hadn't vanished. It was still there, a bruise under my skin, but it didn't own me anymore. I was learning to live around it, to fill the cracks with something new. The sun climbed higher, warming the air, and I kept drawing the pencil, a quiet rhythm. The courtyard felt like a promise, a place where I could be whole again. I wasn't there yet, but I was closer than I'd been in years. I closed the sketchbook, my fingers tracing its worn cover, and sat in the stillness, my breath slow, the world soft around me. The courtyard faded into dusk, the ivy now a shadow against the brick. I tucked the sketchbook under my arm and headed back inside, the apartment's warmth wrapping around me. The living room was still a maze of boxes, but a small corner table held a new addition, a vase of daisies Sarah had dropped off yesterday, their petals bright against the wood. I set the sketchbook down and ran my fingers over the flowers, their softness a quiet contrast to the day's weight. Sarah had planned a baby shower for tomorrow, insisting it was time to celebrate. I'd hesitated, unsure I was ready for the fuss, but her enthusiasm had worn me down. Now, standing in the half-unpacked room, I felt a flicker of gratitude. Not just for her, but for everyone who'd stayed, Emily, Clara, even Karen, who'd called earlier with news that the court had frozen James's account. Each step forward was theirs as much as mine. I wandered to the bedroom, a small space with a single window overlooking the street. A canvas leaned against the wall, one I'd started last night. Broad strokes of blue and gold, no clear shape yet, just feeling. I picked up a brush, dipping it into a jar of ochre paint, and added a curve, then another, letting the colors guide me. Painting felt like breathing, each stroke a moment where I wasn't defined by what I'd lost. James had never understood it, had called it childish. But here in this quiet room, it was mine. A knock at the door pulled me away. I opened it to find Clara, her coat dusted with evening mist, a bottle of sparkling cider in her hand. "Thought you could use some company," she said, her smile soft. We settled on the couch, the cider fizzing in mismatched mugs, and talked about nothing, her new job. My neighbor's loud dog. It was easy, like slipping into an old sweater, and I realized how much I'd missed this kind of lightness. As we sipped, Clara's eyes fell on the canvas. "That's new," she said, nodding toward it. "It's beautiful." I shrugged, a little shy. "Just messing around. Helps me think." She tilted her head, studying it. "It's more than that. It's you, Lauren. The way you see things. Don't stop." Her words were simple, but they sank deep, a reminder of the parts of myself I was rediscovering. We talked until the streetlights buzzed on the city settling into night. After Clara left, I stood by the window watching the street below, a couple walking hand in hand, a bike's bell chiming faintly. I touched the locket, its familiar shape, a comfort, not a chain. The baby kicked a gentle nudge and I smiled, resting my hand on my belly. James was a shadow now, his choices his own. I didn't need to carry his weight anymore. I turned back to the canvas, picking up the brush again. One last stroke, a soft arc of gold catching the lamplight. It wasn't finished, but it didn't need to be. Neither was I. The room was quiet, the air still, and I stood there, paint smudged on my fingers, feeling the world settle around me. Tomorrow would come with its noise and new steps, but tonight, this was enough. The hospital room was soft with dawn, the blinds casting slatted light across the white walls. I lay in the bed, my body heavy but my heart light, cradling Lily in my arms. Her tiny fingers curled against my chest, her breath small and steady. The labor had been long hours, blurring into a haze of effort and hope. But now she was here, real, her weight grounding me in a way nothing else could. Sarah and Emily had been by my side, their laughter and tears mingling with mine. But now it was just us, mother and daughter, in the quiet morning. I traced Lily's cheek, marveling at her delicate skin, the way her lashes fluttered in sleep. The locket rested on the bedside table, its clasp undone, a small nod to the journey that brought us here. I'd worn it through every court date, every sleepless night, but today it could rest. This moment wasn't about the past. It was about her, about the life we were starting. The nurse popped in, her smile warm as she checked my chart. "You're doing great, Mama," she said, adjusting Lily's blanket. I nodded, my throat too full to speak. "Mama." The word felt new, like a coat I was still learning to wear. After she left, I shifted Lily, gently reaching for a notebook I'd kept by the bed. It was plain, spiral-bound, filled with sketches and scattered thoughts from the past months. I flipped to a blank page, my pencil hovering, and began to write. The words came slowly, a letter to Lily. One she wouldn't read for years, but I needed to say now. I wrote about the woman I'd been trusting, sometimes too much, building a life around someone else's promises. I wrote about the nights I'd doubted myself, the mornings I'd found strength in small things. A cup of tea, a walk in the park, the feel of a paintbrush in my hand. I wanted her to know that strength wasn't loud or perfect. It was quiet, stubborn, built from the pieces you pick up when everything falls apart. I paused, glancing at Lily, her tiny chest rising and falling. The room smelled of antiseptic and new cotton, a clean slate. I thought of the apartment waiting for us. Its walls now hung with my paintings, each one a step toward myself. The divorce was final now, the house sold, the money secured. Karen had fought hard, and I'd learned to fight too, not just for Lily, but for the woman I was becoming. A soft knock broke my thoughts. Sarah poked her head in, her eyes bright. "Can I come steal some baby time?" she whispered, tiptoeing in. I smiled, shifting to make room. She sat beside me, cooing at Lily, her fingers brushing the baby's tiny hand. "She's perfect," Sarah said, her voice thick. "Just like her mom." I laughed softly, the sound easing the ache I hadn't realized I was carrying. We talked quietly about nothing and everything, her new job. My plans to take Lily to the community garden, the way the city felt different now, softer. Sarah reached into her bag, pulling out a small card. "This came for you," she said, handing it over. It was from Henry, the janitor, from that night at James's office. His handwriting shaky, but clear. "Congratulations on your daughter," it read. "You're stronger than you know." I held the card, my eyes stinging his kindness, a thread tying me back to that moment I'd chosen to stand up. Sarah left to grab coffee, and I settled back with Lily, the notebook open beside me. I wrote a few more lines, promising her a life where she'd know her worth, where she'd never need to shrink for anyone. The words felt like a vow, not just to her, but to myself. The hospital room was still, the world outside, waking slowly, and I held my daughter close, my breath steady, the past a quiet shadow that no longer touched us. Back home, the apartment felt different with Lily, like it had been waiting for her. The first weeks were a blur, sleepless nights, bottles warming at 3 a.m, her soft cries filling the quiet. But they were my nights, my quiet, and I loved them. I'd set her crib by the window, the city's glow filtering through, and watch her sleep, her tiny hands twitching. The canvas in the bedroom was finished now, a swirl of blues and greens like a river finding its way. I'd hung it above her crib, a piece of me to watch over her. I kept writing to her late at night when the world was still. The notebook was nearly full pages of promises and truths I wanted her to carry. I wrote about the pain of losing what I thought was mine, about the strength I found in letting go. Not just of James, but of the version of myself who'd believed love meant ignoring the cracks. I wrote about the people who'd held me up, Sarah's laughter, Emily's fire, Karen's steady hand, even Henry's quiet wisdom. They were my family, the one I'd chosen. One evening I sat on the couch, Lily asleep in her bassinet, the city humming outside. I opened the notebook, reading over the letter I'd started in the hospital. I added a line, "You'll fall, sweet girl, but you'll always get up, because you're enough just as you are." I closed it, my fingers lingering on the cover, and felt a weight lift, like I'd finally set something free. James was gone now, not just from my life, but from the city, his firm letting him go after Karen's motion exposed his fraud. I didn't hate him anymore. I didn't need to. His choices were his, and I'd made mine. I looked at Lily. Her breath soft, and knew I'd done more than survive. I'd built something new, something real for us. The lesson wasn't loud or grand. It was simple, carved from the quiet moments. Strength isn't about never breaking. It's about picking up the pieces, even when they're sharp, and building something better. I learned to trust myself, to see my worth beyond someone else's lies. And I'd teach Lily that every day with every choice I made. What's a moment you found strength in the ashes of something lost? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story. If this resonated, hit like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for carrying your own light. Here's to new beginnings.